Breaking news, the Malaysian Prime Minister says that Zakir Naik's permanent residency could be revoked if it is proven that he has harmed the country's well-being. Earlier, remember, Malaysian authorities did initiate an investigation against controversial Islamic preacher Zakir Naik over his intent to provoke a peace breach while making alleged insensitive remarks on the Hindus and Chinese residing in the Muslim-majority nation. The reason why, now there is a probe that has been reinitiated against him on those particular charges. And clearly, remember, he's a man who's also wanted by India right now. In fact, the Home Minister in Malaysia, the Communication Minister, Human Resources Minister, Natural Resources Minister, the Youth and the Sports Affairs Minister, Anilesh, everyone says this man should be thrown out. But what do we know about the investigation so far, and what possibly would that entail for Zakir Naik himself? Anilesh, we just have a bad audio line with you. We'll just try to reconnect our colleague back with us on the broadcast. The story is bigger because you also have the first response that has just come in from the Malaysian Prime Minister, who says that Zakir Naik's permanent residency could actually be revoked if it is proven that he has harmed the country's well-being. So the story obviously moving at multiple levels as we are trying to get Anilesh back with us on the broadcast for more details on that story. India, remember, earlier has also made a big case to get this man back to India, but that hasn't happened yet, Anilesh. Now, this parallel investigation that is being on right now against Zakir Naik, Anilesh, what really does that mean for the man himself and for the investigative agencies here?
Yeah, certainly it's a big news, and certainly one of the most important developments that one can imagine with regards to this very, very important case. Because remember, the Prime Minister of Malaysia is somebody who in the past was heard saying that he fears that if Zakir Naik is extradited to India, he might not be able to get a fair trial. Now, the same Prime Minister, for the first time ever since the case has gone up, is saying that if Zakir Naik is found guilty of inciting violence, the first thing that will be done is to revoke his permanent residential status. Now, that is very, very important because that has been one of the contentions, that has been one of the hindrances, I would say, with regards to getting Zakir Naik back in this country, because he was enjoying his residential status in Malaysia, roaming free and doing all the preaches as he would do regularly in any part of the world. But for the first time, the government is looking very, very serious about the matter, and especially because 5 ministers, and this is very important. I mean, recent times, I cannot imagine in any country, any part of the world, where 5 ministers would come forward and say this man needs to be sent back to the country where he comes from, and he needs to face charges there, because what he's essentially doing in our country is trying to create a divisive line here. And for the Prime Minister to come forward and say that at the moment the investigation is on, and if he's found guilty, his residential status would be stripped off, is a very serious development. Certainly a very good development with regards to Indian agencies who have been trying very, very hard to convince the international community to issue a red corner notice against Zakir Naik. And for the first time, Prime Minister coming out and saying, which means that his days are numbered in Malaysia.
And you know, Anilesh, even as you get us that perspective, there are 115 complaints we are given to understand against the hate preacher. The police will question him now for racially tinged remarks. And I think these are very, very serious charges, and almost a redux of what this man was also intending to do in India, and something this obviously again will go on to make our case stronger.
Certainly is. I mean, ever since the cases were lodged against him, right from money laundering to sort of spreading hate here, invoking or, inciting violence and fomenting hate, the first thing that has been said by Zakir Naik and his supporters, even in this country, is that no, he's just a preacher. He preaches peace. But for the first time, you see, it is very important because you see the man flee from India, took shelter in a country where he said, oh, it is all political vendetta against me. And when he was given shelter in the country, the very country where he was living says, oh, no, 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 we cannot tolerate you here anymore, because what you are doing is essentially putting our own identity in danger. Of a country like Malaysia, where Hindus and Muslims and all communities have been living for long together in peace, somebody goes in there and tries to drive a wedge. That is something very unacceptable in any society, any part of the world. Now, certainly it strengthens the case of the Indian agencies here, which now will try to persuade to get a red corner notice against him so that he's arrested and he's taken to task. Certainly the decision, or the statement rather, by the Prime Minister makes it a strong case for the Indian agencies to convince the international community that it is not a political vendetta against this man who was fomenting violence here, or instigating people, or creating communal lines in the society, but it was actually on the basis of facts and actually on the basis of truth that the government or the agencies were pursuing this man. This is certainly inching closer for the man to be sent back here. And certainly he is facing a huge amount of flack in Malaysia for what he has said. Remember, not only the Indian community or not only the Hindu community he has disturbed by his comments, but he has also urged the Chinese community, because remember, he said not only about, he also said the Chinese living in Malaysia are guests. And before making sure that Zakir Naik leaves Malaysia, it is the Chinese who need to leave Malaysia first. And that is also not going down very well with the Chinese community living there. So not only facing criticism from India, but also from China. And once upon a time, I would say, admirer of Zakir Naik, the Prime Minister of Malaysia, is certainly changing his heart here and saying if he's found guilty, he will be deported.
And you know, the hate agenda then, Anilesh, whether it's in India or in Malaysia, is almost similar. It's following a similar script. But explain the process to us. What really happens now that you're looking at the police in Malaysia investigating all these complaints? How long will that entail for the entire case? And how could that impact India's case also?
Two important points. One is the kind of involvement we are seeing in the case. So it will not be lost in the rigmarole of procedures and proceedings, because you see, it's not only a random NGO raising a voice against Zakir Naik. It is the cabinet ministers who had held a very serious meeting with the Prime Minister before even the Prime Minister could make a statement. He was convinced by the people who are working with him 24/7 that this man is a danger for our country. Now, I was having a conversation with one of the ministers who is abroad and who will be talking to us very soon. He said that we are very serious about this matter, and this is certainly a priority, and we will ensure that the investigation which is happening with regards to this case goes the way it should and as soon as possible, because this man here is trying to create sort of divisive lines in the society, which is certainly not acceptable. He said in our history, and I'm just talking about the minister who I had a conversation with, he said in our history, we have never seen anybody coming from a different part of the world, taking shelter in our country, enjoying all the benefits of a citizen, and then trying to create a division in our own society. This is highly unacceptable. And that is one of the reasons that you see not only the Minister of Natural Resources, but also the Minister of Sports, Minister of Human Resource. Everybody is joining hands to ensure that the process or the procedure is completed as soon as possible. So make no mistake, it will not be a long, prolonged, delayed process when it comes to taking him to task. It's going to be very soon, very quick. We'll see the results in Malaysia.
Very soon, very quick. The hashtag says drag Zakir back. Anilesh, we'll watch that space with you for the moment. Thank you.